This morning, we're talking to Pat Byrd, who is Executive Director of Fair Districts Georgia, continuing the League of Women Voters of Coastal Georgia series called Three Questions With. So Pat is our resident or partner resident expert on redistricting and has done several programs with her. But we wanted to be very timely with this. And so just ask three questions and go from there. So the first question, in 2018, Eric Holder's group, the National Democratic Redistricting Committee, filed a lawsuit challenging maps approved by the Republican-led Georgia General Assembly in 2011. The suit said that state lawmakers gerrymandered the state's 14 congressional districts in violation of the Voting Rights Act, which prohibits voting discrimination against racial minorities. The same group, Eric Holder's same group, filed similar suits in Alabama and Louisiana. Whatever happened with that?
Okay. Well, first, let's go back if it's okay, to when they actually filed it. I was thinking about it after you had asked that question and went back to the AJC articles. Part of what I remember in 2018, which is when the lawsuits were filed, is that they were being filed about redistricting that had been done in 2011. Mm-hmm. And so at the time, my question had been, why now? Because it's really only 2 years, 3 years away from when we'll be doing all this all over again anyway. Mm-hmm. And I was in a meeting with some of his staffers who were here in Georgia explaining what they were doing. And their take on it was that they didn't really expect to win, that they thought it was way too late in the game to actually have the maps changed before the 2021 redistricting. But what they were doing was what they kept calling a shot across the bow. So what they were saying to Georgia Republicans was, you got away with it in 2011, but from now on, we're going to be doing lawsuits over how you do redistricting if it's unfair, especially if it's unfair about in terms of the Voting Rights Act and the taking away or diminishing of the voting power of minority citizens in Georgia. So one thing was that they launched it knowing that the time was just kind of impossible, but it wasn't. That's one of the things I've learned in getting into this redistricting, is that lawsuits are not necessarily about winning the case. Yes. They can be about learning what's going on, getting a record about what's been going on, putting people on record about what they've said and done, and then being able to use that later on. I was in another meeting with State Senator Elena Parent, who has done a lot of redistricting work and support for redistricting reform, and she said she really regrets that the Democratic Party did not do a lawsuit in the 2011-2012 timeframe. They knew they probably didn't have much of a chance of winning, but they felt like they ought to she said, never again, never again. Anything that comes up, sue them, do depositions, discovery, get everything on record, and then you'll have materials you can use for other purposes. So that was a big learning for me. Then also well, in fact, there were some wonderful things in that article. I don't always find that the AJC includes in-depth reporting, but there were some good things there. If y'all went back and took a look at it, that I had never realized that the change in population in Georgia that led to our getting another congressional district was really primarily like 80% of those new residents were minorities.
Right, exactly.
That's an amazing change, and that's what's fueling all this change now, right?
And that's one of the things, I'm like you, I was very glad that the AJC pointed that out, because that was never more true than it is in Chatham County.
Oh, really?
because Chatham County is the largest county in Georgia outside of Metro Atlanta. And we are now a majority minority county, but our districts are gerrymandered in a way that makes them Republican and largely white candidate controlled. And when we got that extra US House seat based on our growth in population, that all played into who got the seat, and who has remained in the seat ever since. So we were definitely a big part of that growth in population.
That's good. And then what's happened in the meantime? Well, they just, article in the AJC April the 14th, is they've just withdrawn the suit. The judge said, there's no way this thing, federal judge says, no way we'll even deal with this in time redistricting will occur before this case ever finishes up.
Right.
And so they withdrew it. And there in the AJC, we get classic statements by what the Republicans are still saying and what the Democrats are saying. The Republicans are saying all this is about